Remember the Academy Awards? I said how he's the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards. And this stupid guy goes up and it said basically, he is the worst host in the history of the thing. And then I think he said something like, he thinks he bothers me or some crap like that. I said, he's one of the dumbest human beings ever. He should have listened to his wife.
Donald Trump has been going after Jimmy Kimmel for years, and almost every time it happens, the same thing plays out. Trump throws out an insult hoping it'll hurt Kimmel's reputation, but it usually ends up giving Kimmel fresh material for his own show instead. Most public figures eventually stop responding to comedians and just move on, but Trump has never really taken that approach. Even after all these years, Kimmel is still one of the few people who keeps pulling Trump back into public comments, and every time it happens, the story follows the same pattern. Trump takes a shot, and Kimmel turns it into another joke for his audience. One of the clearest examples happened after the Oscars. Trump criticized Kimmel's performance as host, calling him one of the worst Academy Awards hosts ever. Then, months later at a political rally, he brought it up again, telling the crowd he had read Kimmel's old joke, calling him one of the dumbest human beings alive, and adding that Kimmel should have listened to his own wife, who had reportedly tried to convince him not to respond to the joke in the first place.
Really proud of something. I was wondering if I could share it with you. I just got a review, and has there ever been a worse host than Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars? His opening was that of a less than average person trying too hard to be something which he is not and never can be. Get rid of Kimmel and perhaps replace him with another washed up but cheap ABC talent, George Slopanopoulos. He would make everybody on stage look bigger, stronger, and more glamorous. Blah, blah, blah. Make America great again.
When Kimmel talked about it on his show, he didn't get defensive or seem bothered at all. Instead, he read Trump's entire criticism out loud to the audience with the kind of tone you'd use if someone had just given you a glowing review. He went through it point by point, including Trump's claim that his opening felt like a below-average person trying way too hard to be something he could never be, and that ABC should replace him with a different host. The audience immediately burst into laughter, not because the insults were especially clever, but because Kimmel had turned the whole thing into a joke almost instantly. What was clearly meant to damage his reputation ended up becoming the funniest part of his monologue within seconds. And this wasn't just a one-time moment either. It's become a pattern over the years whenever Trump decides to bring up Kimmel's name in public.
Observing them, learning about them, and in many ways, I feel like I've been doing similar work over the past 8 years, observing Donald Trump. Pansies, and after a while, I don't know how long exactly, but Dr. Goodall spent most of her time watching them from a distance, began to interact with her fellow primates, and last night, that happened to me.
Instead of avoiding the criticism or trying to play it down, Kimmel puts it right in the spotlight because he knows exactly how his audience is going to react when they see a former president spending so much time attacking a late-night comedian. In one of his most memorable segments, he compared all the years he's spent covering Trump to a researcher studying wildlife, joking that he'd spent nearly a decade watching Trump the same way a primatologist studies chimpanzees. Then he said that, eventually, the researcher starts interacting with the primates directly, and that's exactly what had happened to him. The joke got one of the biggest laughs of the night because it summed up years of material in one simple image that everyone immediately understood. What really sets Kimmel apart is that he rarely treats Trump like a typical political figure who needs to be debated. Instead, he presents him almost like a recurring character in an ongoing TV series, where every controversy feels like a new episode and every reaction creates fresh material for the next one. People who watch Kimmel regularly already know that's the format. They're not tuning in for traditional political analysis, they're watching to see how he takes the latest headline and turns it into both commentary and comedy at the same time.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
Naturally, people see all of this in completely different ways depending on which side they're on. Trump's supporters often argue that Kimmel spends way too much time going after Trump while giving other public figures much less attention. On the other hand, Trump's critics say Kimmel is simply reacting to the constant stream of material Trump keeps putting into the public conversation himself. Neither side is likely to change its mind, And that's a big reason this rivalry has lasted for so many years. Both sides feel they're right, and both sides keep paying attention. The dynamic shifted a bit during another exchange when Trump, instead of responding to a specific joke Kimmel had made, changed the focus completely by criticizing Kimmel's ratings and questioning whether he had any real talent in the first place. That kind of response matters because it changes what people end up talking about. Instead of debating the joke that started everything, the conversation turns into whether Kimmel is actually a good broadcaster, whether his ratings are strong enough to justify his platform, and whether audiences still genuinely find him funny.
The lowest rated Kennedy Center honors telecast of all time. Let me tell you something. I'd hate to be the White House intern that had to tear that headline out of all the papers and eat them. You know, as I recall, he said he would step down if this happened, right? He said, if I can't beat out Jimmy Kimmel, then I don't think I should be president. And well, hey, a deal is a deal. Back to Mar-a-Lago you go.
That shift works because it moves everyone's attention away from the original issue and onto a completely different question. Instead of staying focused on the joke that started the exchange, the conversation takes on a life of its own, and that's a big reason these public clashes keep getting attention instead of fading away after a single news cycle. The discussion almost never stays limited to one point. It keeps growing, mixing political commentary with entertainment news and drawing in audiences from both sides at the same time.
John Trump is guilty of 34 felony charges. On the first charge of falsifying business records.
Guilty.
On the second charge.
Guilty.
On the third charge.
Guilty.
On the next 31 charges.
Guilty. 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 Guilty.
That's right. Guilty. Like that. Poor Donald Trump, 7 weeks of sleep farting, all down the drain, all for nothing. You do have to hand it to him. No president has ever been convicted more than Donald Trump. How long before he starts bragging about this?
Social media makes all of this move even faster. One clip gets posted, and within minutes people are reacting everywhere. Trump's supporters jump in to defend him, Kimmel's supporters push back, and before long, what started as a single late-night segment has turned into a much bigger conversation happening across multiple platforms at the same time. Just when it looks like one exchange is finally fading away, Kimmel comes back with another response that keeps the rivalry going. In one memorable moment, he brought up a low-rated televised event connected to Trump and reminded his audience about an earlier promise Trump had made, saying he would step away from politics if he couldn't beat Kimmel in the ratings. Kimmel delivered the joke with mock seriousness, suggesting that now the numbers were in, maybe it was time for Trump to head back to Mar-a-Lago and keep that promise. The audience loved it, not just because of the punchline, but because of how it was built. Kimmel wasn't making up a new criticism. He was using Trump's own public statements as the setup, then pointing out the contradiction. That has become one of his most reliable ways of making these jokes, because it lets Trump's own words do most of the work instead of relying on exaggeration. Trump's critics see moments like that as highlighting real inconsistencies, while his supporters see them as one-sided attacks designed to get applause from an audience that already agrees with Kimmel. No matter which side people are on, the result is always the same. The rivalry stays alive. Every joke leads to another response, every response becomes another headline, and every headline creates even more attention across news outlets and social media. Instead of disappearing after a single news cycle, these exchanges keep getting replayed on television, shared online, picked apart by political commentators, and debated by supporters and critics alike. Then, almost inevitably, another clip appears and the whole cycle starts all over again from a slightly different angle. One of the most memorable moments came when Trump aimed a direct insult at Kimmel, and Kimmel fired it right back almost instantly. What made it stand out was how quickly he flipped the situation. Trump clearly meant the comment as a serious insult, but Kimmel barely hesitated before turning it into the setup for another joke. The audience wasn't just laughing at the punchline. They were also reacting to the strange reality of watching a former president spend so much public attention criticizing a late-night TV host over what was, at its core, a relatively small comedy joke. That sense of absurdity is a big part of why this rivalry has stayed so interesting for so long. Neither man seems interested in simply letting it end. Trump keeps responding whenever Kimmel's name comes up in the political conversation, and Kimmel keeps responding whenever Trump gives him fresh material to work with. After years of this back and forth, the rivalry has grown into something much bigger than a personal disagreement. It has become a symbol of two very different kinds of influence in modern American culture. One comes from traditional politics, built through rallies, speeches, and official public appearances. The other comes from entertainment, through nightly monologues, carefully timed comedy, and an audience that keeps showing up expecting that style of content. Even though those worlds are very different, they keep colliding, and every new exchange is another reminder of how closely politics and entertainment have become connected in today's media landscape in a way that would have seemed much less common years ago. Another reason this rivalry keeps going is that both men have loyal audiences who see these moments through completely different lenses. Trump's supporters usually see him as defending himself against a comedian who repeatedly singles him out, while Kimmel's viewers see the jokes as a way of exposing real contradictions in the words and actions of a powerful public figure. Since both groups already have strong opinions before any new exchange even happens, every fresh round instantly sparks another wave of debate. One side argues that Trump is simply responding to unfair criticism, while the other believes Kimmel is using humor to highlight documented inconsistencies. Neither view really changes over time, which helps explain why this conversation never seems to reach a clear ending. What makes it even more interesting is that neither man appears willing to completely walk away. Trump could choose to ignore Kimmel's jokes, and Kimmel could easily shift his attention to other public figures, but they keep returning to the same rivalry again and again. Whether that's a deliberate choice or just the momentum of a feud that has built up over so many years, the audience plays a role too. People tune in already expecting the next chapter. They expect Kimmel to respond, they wonder if Trump will answer back, and they know there's a good chance the whole exchange will create another round of headlines. Ironically, that predictability is part of what keeps people watching. Every time Trump mentions Kimmel, viewers want to see how Kimmel will respond on his next show. Every time Kimmel makes another joke about Trump, people wait to see if Trump notices and fires back, and in many cases, he does. Social media only speeds the process up. A segment that once would have stayed on television now spreads online within minutes, reaching millions of people who immediately react, comment, and share their opinions. By the next morning, what started as a late-night comedy segment can easily become a nationwide talking point. These exchanges spread so quickly because they're simple to understand. You don't need detailed knowledge of politics to follow what's happening. People just see one well-known public figure criticizing another and then watch how the response unfolds. That simplicity makes the clips incredibly easy to share across different platforms and audiences. In many ways, that's what separates this rivalry from so many other public feuds that disappear almost as quickly as they begin. It sits right where politics, entertainment, news coverage, and public opinion all overlap. Both men benefit in different ways from the attention the rivalry creates, even though they appeal to different audiences. Still, they remain connected by the same repeating cycle of criticism and response, and based on everything that has happened so far, there's little sign that pattern is ending anytime soon. Whether people see these exchanges as political commentary, entertainment, or simply an ongoing public spectacle, they continue attracting attention because both men are instantly recognizable, the reactions feel familiar, and the political and cultural stakes remain just high enough to keep people watching for whatever happens next.